Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining our alumni Q&A. My name is Kristen Kelly, and I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions and Coordinator for Diversity Recruitment. We have some wonderful UB alum with us tonight to answer your questions. Please raise your hand and enter your questions in the chat. We'll start by allowing our panelists to introduce themselves, and we'll start with Carisha.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carisha Hawthorne Greer. I am a 2014 graduate from the University at Buffalo Law School. It is late in the afternoon, so if I say things that don't make sense, please understand. I had a very long day. I currently reside in Buffalo, New York. I'm originally from Montego Bay, Jamaica, born and bred, spent 16 years in Jamaica, and then came to the US to finish my education, finished high school, did undergrad, and then went to the University at Buffalo Law School. I currently work as a principal law clerk in the New York State Court of Claims in our Buffalo office here. I work with Judge Stephanie Saunders.
Wonderful. Natalia.
Hi, everyone. I'm happy to see so many folks joined us today. My name is Natalia Marte. I go by she, her. I am from the Dominican Republic, but I was raised in half Providence, Rhode Island, and half in Brooklyn, so I've been claiming both. I completed my undergraduate degree at Roger Williams University, and I majored in psychology and minored in criminal justice. I pursued my graduate degree in John Jay College of Criminal Justice for forensic psychology, and then I attended University at Buffalo School of Law and graduated in 2020. I am currently a litigation associate at Phillips Lytle. I'm working in their commercial litigation and their labor and employment practice group. And I'm happy to see everyone here.
Thanks, Natalia. And Aaron.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Aaron Sakin. I've lived in the Buffalo area for 19 years. Not originally from here, though. I'm originally from Massachusetts. And that's where I completed my undergrad degree at University of Massachusetts Amherst, or UMass, which is actually very, very similar to UB. They're both in towns called Amherst as well, and they're similarly sized and designed. It was just a weird coincidence. I received my undergrad major in journalism. I was a minor in English. Those are two degrees you can't do a lot with, except maybe going into journalism or publishing. And this was my second career because I had done that previously. Went back to law school when I was in my early 30s. I graduated, hard to believe, it'll be 10 years ago this spring in 2013. And I am now a partner at a locally based law firm called Hodgson Russ. I'm in the business litigation group, and that's about half of my practice. And the other half of my practice is divided up in land use and energy type work. And it goes by quickly. That's about the best I can say.
Thank you. And Aaron, do they pronounce it Amherst there instead of Amherst like we pronounce
Yes.
it here?
Yes. So here's a little tip for those of you who have been around a little bit. You say the H in New York. You do not say the H in Massachusetts. So that was you picked up on that. That was on purpose. You say Amherst in Massachusetts and Amherst in New York. Just a goofy thing. And then there's the whole pop versus soda, and everything else. That's Western New York.
Thank you so much. We have one more panelist joining us, and he's logging in. We'll have him introduce himself, Sam Alba, when he is able to get connected. But let's get started with questions. Any of our guests are able to raise their hand and we'll go to questions. If not, I can get us started.
I ask anything, honestly. you've got, knowing the other panelists, you've got access to attorneys who have a tremendous breadth of experience and understand the process that you're all going through now. So there's no question that I think is too insignificant. No question. You can be blunt, you can be candid. We are here as a resource. And one of the reasons we are is because when we were all law students, the alumni did this for us, right? That's one of UB's greatest assets is its alumni network. And I know that all of you, in 4 or 5 years are going to be willing to do the same thing. And here's Sam. Sam, you're muted, but I can see you.
Am I muted? That's great. How's everybody doing?
Great, thank you for joining us. Sam, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your practice area, undergrad, anything you'd like to share?
Sure. My name is Sam Alba. The job I'm at the most is with the town of Amherst, where I'm senior deputy counsel. I handle most of the town's civil litigation, a lot of property tax litigation, where people challenge what the town assessed their properties at in state Supreme Court. I've also more recently jumped into the world of red flag laws and extreme risk protection orders, where I represent police officers from the town of Amherst in hearings where if anyone makes a serious threat of harm or violence to another person, the police are now mandated to file an application to remove firearms from that person and make sure they can't obtain firearms. And of course, the Second Amendment's in play. So the respondents, the people who have made the threat, are entitled to a full hearing in state Supreme Court. Amherst is a huge town, and we've had a lot of them. So that keeps me in court a few times a week, running hearings, doing what I love to do, as Mr. Sakin remembers from our days on trial team. I also do the same work for the village of Depew, where I'm village attorney, and I run a small law firm where I do some criminal defense when I have time. I'm also of counsel at a firm I worked at for a number of years where, they kind of need me. I pitch in. So 4 jobs, which is great. You could do it too if you want. And I went to Buffalo State for undergrad. I obviously went to UB for law school. And I think I need to now call it Buffalo State University. They're a university now. So I don't know how they're going to adjust our diplomas, but they haven't asked for mine back yet.
Great, thank you so much. And so we'll let Mary kick off our questions. Feel free to unmute yourself, Mary.
All right, hi. I just want to start off by thanking you guys for taking the time to meet with us this afternoon or evening. I appreciate it. So I was wondering if any of you guys had experience with receiving accommodations, whether for a disability or a learning disability, anything like that, and if you're comfortable sharing what your experiences with that were at the University at Buffalo School of Law, or if you had maybe a close friend, or if any experience you guys had with that. If you could just reflect on that, I'd really appreciate it.
So I personally have not had any experience, but someone very close to me who is actually currently at UB has been through the process and is currently receiving accommodations. It is actually very easy. The process in and of itself, it's very easy. And I can tell you from that individual's experience, right at orientation, that resources and that information is shared. There's an office on campus that is specifically dedicated to working with individuals with disabilities and ensuring that they have the accommodations for class as well as for exams. And so with this individual, without giving their specific diagnosis and so forth, they were able to get the information, and they actually got it from Dean Gargano, who is the Dean of Student Affairs, or Vice Dean. I'm not sure what her title is, but she's the head of the Student Affairs. She provided that information. It was a matter of that individual scheduling a meeting, discussing with the resource officer there what their challenges are, if they had any prior diagnosis, Then the resource officer asked if they had any documentation they could provide it. In this situation, and the reason I'm sharing this specific situation is that that individual actually did not have any formal diagnosis, say from a doctor or resources, not resources, I mean additional documentation. However, based on that initial meeting that they had with the resource officer, they were still able to get accommodation for assistance in the classroom, as well as extended time for exams and so forth. So the process is pretty straightforward. And as long as you can articulate, and if you have supporting documentation to support your need for the accommodation, the person, when I spoke with them, their experience, it was not a challenge, and they were able to get it for their first semester in law school.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Sure. I might be able to add a little something. It's not directly on point. And my time now goes back, about 10 years. But for example, I was lucky enough to be one of the law review editors. And this is something you're not going to have to think about for a little while, but it's like one of the things you try to do, if you want to torture yourself when you go to law school. And
I've heard nothing but great things and many laughs about law review.
It's one of those things that there'll be discussions and whispers about. It's sort of a time-honored tradition for some to try it. But there's a process you go through to go out for it and to try out for it. And I was in charge of that process 1 year. And even at that point, even more than 10 years ago, students were able to receive accommodations in taking the exam and going through that process, as needed. Even more broadly than that, I think the school has really done a fine job under Dean Abramowski of really putting an emphasis on wanting the students to first and above all feel comfortable, right? And that can mean, a variety of different things, but they have dedicated, I know this, a significant amount of resources just to making sure that students have what they need. They have the deans, the staff, the contacts that they need, that you're aware of them to make you comfortable and to point you in the right direction and to give you what you need. Law school is stressful enough academically. So I think that one of the strengths actually of UB is the fact that they've really put an emphasis on creating an environment like that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia.
Oh, I'll just add something really quickly. I also personally didn't have an experience, but I did have a number of friends that went through the process. And I think it's also important to emphasize, and Karisha and Aaron also kind of got to this, that at UB Law specifically, there's like no stigma attached to requesting like resources or accommodations. It's actually super frequent and normal. So, it's like you should always feel comfortable seeking those resources, because everyone is super welcome to obtaining that.
Thank you. That's really good to hear.
Thanks. And I would just like to add, if a student discloses in their application or during the enrollment process, I try to make it my business to just be a sounding board and to talk about, timelines. And I would recommend that should you need accommodations, using that summer before you start your first year to make that appointment and get that going is a great time. I will always refer people to Dean Gargano, and the University or the University of Buffalo School of Law has put significant resources into providing additional support within this the Office of Student Services. And so it's even much more a student-centered holistic approach. So feel free to reach out to me after this if you have additional questions or want to talk about your personal situation. And we'll go to our next question. Anshuri, please forgive me if I pronounced that incorrectly, and correct me if you'd like.
Hi, my name's Anushri. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate the time. If you could all share your favorite part about being at UB Law, I'd be very grateful. I know it's been a very long time, but if there's one aspect of being a student at the law school that may have impacted your careers or where you all are at right now, it would be wonderful to hear.
So I think there's two things that are my favorite part of being at UB Law. They're tied. First is the people you meet. You know, I've been in weddings, I've been best friends with people I went to law school with for almost a decade now, and you never thought that would happen going into a program like this. Academically, I think some of the extracurriculars provide you invaluable experience. You know, if you work hard, you're going to learn to think like a lawyer. You're going to learn to write. It's going to happen. But there's some intangible things that, you know, great lawyers do. And UB exposes you to those great lawyers through the trial team, through the clinics. So I'd say take advantage of those. I think I learned more working with the practitioners who are coaches, my trial team, than I did in a lot of classrooms, just about the practice of law, how to deal with people, what to expect.
Yeah, I would also say extracurricular activities. And for me specifically, I would say like the student organizations. So I was like heavily involved with the Black Law Student Association and the Latin American Law Student Association. And we have very active chapters at UB Law School. Actually, and I mean, I brag about it pretty hard, but our two chapters are super active, like in the Northeast region. We go to regional conferences, national conferences. So in addition to the alumni that you have available through UB and the law school, you also have access to resources and alumni just from like that specific organization and network. And kind of going off of what Sam said earlier, another thing that I was super appreciative of is the professors at UB Law. Not to brag, but like we also have world-renowned professors and like they're experts like in the field and they're actually like active in their specific field. So you'll often hear about them like in the media, or you'll hear about something that they just recently published. And it's really good to like be in a lecture with someone who's actively practicing or who has like that recent experience to kind of like bring into the classroom. And the third thing I'll say is the camaraderie in the law school. I know law school itself is like super stressful and that just kind of comes with the territory, but I will say as competitive as like the very nature of like law can kind of be, in my experience, like everyone helped each other out. We would like share outlines. We would like decompress and do self-care together. So, and that just kind of came with like the UB Law like culture, so.
So for me, I really enjoyed the experiential learning experience at UB, at least during my time, and it's actually expanded since I had the opportunity to do practicums where I was able to earn academic credit and work for a local legal services organization. I had the opportunity to clerk for a judge while in law school. I had the opportunity to take trial technique courses and do moot court. So I felt like I was not only learning the substantive pieces of the law, but I was able to get that hands-on experience and to network with the legal community. The other part of law school that I enjoyed with, at least with respect to the classes that I took and the professors that taught me, I felt like they really had an open door policy. I never felt nervous or scared going to my professors during office hours, talking to them about things that I didn't understand or trying to dig a little bit deeper into the subject areas. All of the professors that I had were very welcoming, very open to meeting with students outside of that 2 hours or 3 hours in the classroom setting that you have with them. So those things really made my experience at UB stand out. And I think it gave me an opportunity when I graduated. I was able to build really a network of people who weren't only law students, but who could help me navigate starting off my legal career and navigate, finding the right job or finding the right practice area that fits with my personality or aligns with my goals.
I agree with everything that everyone said. My answer would have been actually identical to Sam's. You're going to meet people who aren't just going to be your best friends for life. They're also going to be your colleagues in the profession. And you're going to not just be taught by some of the brightest professors, they're going to be adjuncts who are practitioners, who are going to teach you the practical skills of law during bridge times. That's like sort of in between semesters. They're going to offer practical skills courses. They're the professors in the Advocacy Institute, which is one of the, premier educational practical skills institutes in the country. You have the best trial lawyers, the best appeal lawyers, teaching you how to do those things. And you're going to mock them up and you're going to do them. You're going to get the chance to compete against people from other law schools. And most of the people who do it are volunteers because, again, people did it for them. They taught them. That's how Sam and I, doing trial team, learned how to try a case. I mean, we literally, I'm not kidding. We came out of law school, and you don't know a lot when you come out of law school. We came out of law school and we were able to try a case right away because of the training that we received from the alumni who are there, willing to do it. It's a tradition, and I am telling you, it sets us apart from everywhere I've been. All of my other friends who have gone to law school in different parts of the country haven't had anything like the experience that I had, and I feel very, very fortunate. I think you'll all benefit from it. And like I said before, in a few years when you're done, you're going to want to be the ones volunteering and helping too.
Thank you. That's also fantastic to hear. Aaron, another thing I would like to add, I'm also a 30 plus something in Massachusetts. So it's very reassuring to hear your journey.
Oh, good.
Yeah, one of my mentors actually is from the same firm as you. She was a partner who just retired. She's also a UB alum, and she inspired me to apply to the school.
I would say to any of you who are not, and I think Cassius actually asked a question down in the chat. I would say to any of you who have had time in between. Cassius asked, what are the challenges, right? There were way more advantages, at least from my perspective, than there were challenges, because you've worked, for a living, you've failed at things, you've done things, you've been accountable to get up early in the morning and go to work, and law school doesn't seem as bad. One of the challenges was I was working probably more hours than I should have been as a law student, because I had to eat and I was married. Had a kid 3 weeks before the bar. I don't recommend that. I didn't have the kid, my wife did, but you get what I mean. It's a little easier for me. But you can do it. You can do anything, whether you go straight through or you're non-traditional and you have time in between. That experience is going to give you, I think, a tremendous advantage more than anything. The only tough part actually really is like the first few weeks getting back into being a student. But after that, it just falls right into place, I think.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. I'm going to go to the chat where we have another question. Did you enter law school with a particular area of legal interest? And did that specialty subject change while you were a law student?
I can start us off. So my reason for going to law school was because I wanted to do criminal defense and kind of be like a soldier on the ground when it came to like the mass incarceration issue that's affecting like Black and Latinx and other minorities in this country. And I realized, I think maybe like during my last year of law school and even my first and second year of practice, that there's other ways that you can still be involved in the community and effectuate the change that you want to be, and doesn't necessarily have to take up like your 9 to 5. So if anyone knows me, throughout law school, I did a lot of public interest work. So I interned at the ACLU of Puerto Rico. I worked in the criminal defense practice of the Bronx Defenders, and I think I clerked for 1 year, and then I ended up working at like a small criminal defense firm in Buffalo. And After I graduated, I clerked for 2 years in the appellate court, and then now I'm in private practice at a mid-sized firm, doing commercial litigation and labor and employment. So that's kind of completely different from what I was doing in law school. But the reason is because at some point I realized like I am super passionate about public interest work, but I'm also super interested in like the different areas of law. And like you will be exposed to that during law school, and that will kind of like trigger your interest in other areas too. Right now, I still get the opportunity to do a lot of pro bono work, whether that's like reviewing bylaws for the Hispanic Women's League or doing work with the Urban League here in Buffalo, or other like criminal defense matters too that I get involved with. Like there's still ways for you to kind of like balance out both interests. So yeah, and you might find that too, like you might end up going to law school for a certain reason, and then as you take certain classes, you might be interested in other areas, and that's okay for you to explore. One of the things that I've learned through my mentors is that, you know, you might start out your legal career in a certain area and then end up trying out 3 or 4 different areas across like 20 or 30-year career. So just kind of put yourself open to that.
Yeah, what Natalia said at the end there is correct. You may start your legal career somewhere and end up somewhere completely different 5-10 years down the line. I came into law school similarly, wanting to do criminal defense. I spent 1 summer at the Legal Aid Bureau, which is the public defender firm or legal organization here in Buffalo, and decided this is not for me. Went through my entire law school career saying I will never step foot in family court because way too much drama, don't want to do anything involving kids. Spent 3 years of my legal career handling child abuse and child neglect cases in family court, and I actually enjoyed that work tremendously. So it's okay if you go in with one thing and it changes along the way. And it's also okay if you go in with one thing and that's what you end up doing for the next 40 years in your career. But the beauty of it is you will have the opportunity to take a wide range of courses, to engage in a wide range of hopefully, if you utilize your law school career well, a wide range of internship or experiential learning experiences that will really tell you what you like and what you don't like. And that will shape what you end up doing throughout your career.
So I had a very similar experience, but the opposite of what Natalie and Carisha just described. I remember working as a cook before law school, and someone in the kitchen was like, "Oh, you're going to law school? Are you going to do criminal defense?" I said, "No, I'm going to law school so I don't have to deal with criminals." And what an ignorant statement that was, because when I got out, my first job was a general practice firm that did a little bit of everything. And I really liked criminal defense, and there were hearings, and you've effectuated more change helping people, defending them, figuring out why they committed the crime. It's called taking a holistic approach to your practice. Not only what did they do, but why did they do it, and how can I help them? So now I'm doing mostly tax litigation, and I'm taking extra time in the evening to do criminal defense because I like it so much, which is a place I never thought I'd end up. You should go to law school without any idea what you want to do, because you're opening a door to a room full of doors. You have tons of options. You may not even end up a lawyer practicing in courts. There's non-traditional paths as well. So I don't know that any of us ended up doing exactly what we thought, except maybe people who took the patent bar and had like a special science degree that they were going to law school for. Keep an open mind.
I had no true appreciation for what it actually meant to be a lawyer and what lawyers do. I had very much the generic understanding of what I thought a lawyer did based on what you see, and read, and maybe catch a glimpse of people who do it. There are dozens, probably more than that, of just basic concentrations you can do as a lawyer. And you don't know that until you go through the process. And it is very common for people to start and get through their first, even their second year of law school, sometimes all of it, without a true focus, right? Without knowing exactly what that will be. Sometimes it just happens as you go through and you understand better what the practice is like because you intern and you clerk at places. Sometimes it happens because you get a job somewhere after. It's the first job you have and you learn something and you find out you either like it or you don't like it, or maybe it's somewhere in between, right? That happens too. I mean, I did know that I wanted to be the type of lawyer that went to court, whatever that meant and entailed. But there's a million other types of lawyers you can be that don't do that, right? You can be anything you want, and you've got all the time in the world to sort that out. I would just say don't have any angst over not knowing, because you shouldn't know, right? Unless you have a parent, right, or somebody close to you that does this. You really shouldn't know, and you should, want to kind of figure it out and fall into it yourself as you go.
Great, thank you so much. Tabitha asks in the chat, for non-traditional students, was it easy to work class schedule around childcare arrangements, especially in the 1L year? Did anybody have that experience where they had children while in law school?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I have 4 kids now. My wife had our first child, who's now 11, right at the beginning of second semester of 1L year, which like Aaron doesn't recommend 3 weeks before the bar. I absolutely don't recommend having a child right at the beginning of law school. But it was a grind, and I found I had a lot of classmates pitching in to help. You missed this, here's the notes, make sure you're aware of this, little things like that. And I think, especially at UB, someone mentioned the word camaraderie in the legal community. You'll especially find that in your section. It's kind of a no man left behind or woman left behind feeling. Everyone's there to help. And, maybe some B pluses turned into Bs because I was spread a little bit thin, but it was right there with it. And it isn't impossible.
Thank you so much.
I think, I was just going to say, I think for my classmates who did have children, and it wasn't toward the end for me, but I sensed that it was because most of your classes are going to be daytime, especially until later on. It's a little bit like leaving for a job for part of the day, but you might have a little bit more flexibility with your schedule coming and going, except that there's going to be a lot of work that's going to keep you up later, and things like that. It's a challenge, but you're going to have, many of you are going to have children when you're starting out in the practice of law, or at some point, right? Even if you don't as a law student. And so you're going to get that training, right? You're going to get that baptism by fire, whether you get it as a law student or afterward. If you get it as a law student, like Sam did, then once you get into the practice of law, you're used to it, right? So it's just, you can do anything. You can, trust me. I tell anybody, you will find a way to handle it. You've already gotten that far. Don't worry too much, because there's no great time, right? Especially in this career. But if you're that resourceful and you've made it this far, you're going to be okay. I promise.
Yeah, and just to kind of like piggyback on that, there's also a student org at UB Law is called Parents and Law Students, I believe. And I think that was started by one of my colleagues during my tenure in law school. So I'm pretty sure it's still active now. But I mean, even that membership was like very supportive amongst one another, whether it was like emotional or just like class support. I will say that like the professors are super accommodating, and as long as you communicate, like they will be able to work something out. One of my colleagues had to bring her daughter one day to class, and that's like perfectly fine. So I think as long as you communicate, professors understand that like life happens and you're not just a law student, like you can be a mother, a father, a parent, and a whole bunch of other identities while you're attending law school, and they're very respectful of that. So yeah, just to know that like you will have that support at the law school.
Great. And we'll move on to Marcus. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Oh, well, first, I actually feel better that there are non-traditional students here, because that's one of the battles that I'm fighting, is that you're too old. So that I get that all the time. So if you had it all to do over again, would you still attend UB?
Yes, I would. For everything that everyone has said, in addition to the cost, I felt like the quality of education that I got, the support that I got, the alumni network that was there to help me, see the fruits of my labor. At the end of it, it was worth it. I would have picked UB all over again for those reasons.
Some people pick their law schools based on, just purely the ranking or the number, right? Some people pick their law schools because they walk into the campus, and it's like right out of a magazine, okay? That's not the reason to pick where you go. Pick where you go to find a situation that's going to be the best for you in all respects. I could go on and on about the alumni and the resources and how it's unmatched. Karish is 100% right about the bargain. You will never find ever a better bargain for law school. You are going to be a part of the flagship, okay, state university and law school. Nobody else in New York can have the full might of a state university like that. No other law school behind them. We have alumni networks, not just in Western New York, although it's particularly strong here, but and Sam can talk all about this. We have strong alumni networks in New York, in Washington. We have alumni all over the country, and they will help you. I can assure you of that. It just, like, would I do it all over again? Absolutely. And I didn't even know a tenth of what I know now about UB. So not only would I do it over again, I would tell everybody else, you're crazy if you don't.
Yeah, 1000% with everyone.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 1000% with what Karish and Aaron said. I will also, just to add on to that, one of the things that I loved about UB Law is if you don't find something that UB Law does and that you're interested in, you can create it like while you're there. And a lot of folks did that. If you already see, a lot of people are nodding because it's true. So when I first started there, there's like a bunch of joint degree programs also. And I was also interested in doing my PhD. I applied to both programs, got in, and then now there's like a JD PhD joint degree program. I know there were a few of my colleagues that wanted to do work in a specific field, and there might have not been a clinic there, or like it was active before and they reactivated it while they were there. So one thing that I loved about UB Law is that if you want to do something and it's not currently available, like they're going to make it happen for you, just because like they're super accommodating to its students and they really invested in the student body.
So I just wanted to say my wish for all of you is to find someone who talks about you the way Aaron Sakin talks about UB Law. Wow. But I share Aaron's sentiments. I'd absolutely go to UB all over again. These people I've met there are my best friends, professors I'm friendly with. Professor Todd Brown's wife is a forensic psychiatrist I've used in multiple criminal cases. We've gone estate sailing together. We've just been on the same line and talked and shopped, and it's a great community like that. And you don't find that anywhere else. I have friends who have gone to school at LSU, other better places, NYU, Columbia, and they scatter and they go out and, they put down roots and they're fine. But your roots start in law school at UB, and that's what makes it special.
Thanks for the information. I appreciate it. I'm feeling a lot better, actually. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have another question here. What tips do you have for networking? Natalia, can I start with you?
Yeah, definitely. So my friends always called me like the networking queen. And Kristen can attest to this, and Carisha too. One thing I love, I am very professionally mixy. And what I mean by that is I love to attend like networking events. I love getting to know new people. And I think UB is super good about like putting on events, whether it's like the Law Alumni Association, UB Gold Group, the Minority Bar Association, WBOSNI, which is the Women's Bar Association. Like there will always be an event to go to like almost every week. And they're super accommodating to students because they sometimes make it for free. So that's super helpful. But as far as like networking tips, I joined a number of different associations, like not just student organizations or like national student organizations, but I joined like the New York State Bar Association. There's also like a student like chapter to that. So always be aware of that opportunity. I also joined like local Buffalo community organizations because I wanted to keep myself grounded in like the work that I was passionate about. So I also attended those events. So I would say like my biggest tip is just if you see an event and you can fit it in your schedule, definitely attend it. One of my biggest tips is if you can get an idea of who will be attending and you can kind of like research them beforehand. And if you see someone that kind of like piques your interest because of where they're working or maybe like where they went to undergrad or something about their background, make sure that you talk to them that evening or at that event, get their business card, write a little something about your conversation with them and then like follow up with them in the next day or two. So that's usually something that I do and I always recommend folks to do.
Carisha, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you at first.
I'm sorry, I said, I am the opposite of Natalia. I am very much a homebody. If I don't have to go to something, I will always choose not to go. But what I learned in law school is a part of this profession is forcing yourself, putting yourself at those events. And so for me, networking was always very hard, or attending those events were always very hard because it is not in my nature. So what I did, and for anyone on this call who's like me, who would much prefer to stay at home, curl up in their bed with a good book, make sure you go to those events, but you don't have to go to every single one. Be strategic. So you may pick, okay, I'll attend these 2 or 3, and then give yourself small goals. So when I go to networking events, I say to myself, if I talk to 2 to 3 new people, I did well. I deserve that glass of wine. Yay, you did it. And so I give myself small goals, 2 to 3 people that I don't know, not someone that I know, like new individuals. And the other thing to help you if you're not really like want to be there or want to engage is lawyers like to talk. So just ask a bunch of questions. You just ask questions, ask them things that you are interested in, things about what they do. They will talk, and then that pressure that you feel of having to respond or force the conversation, it's not there. So that's my tip for introverts who don't necessarily like the networking. I've actually gotten a lot better. It's funny because I'm sure Natalia is sitting here looking like, you don't like networking? I've seen you at so many events and you're talking it up with people. It's a process. So when I commit to something, and that's why I like to plan my networking events, because if I'm committing to a networking event, then it takes me many days to work myself up to be like, okay, you're going to this event. This is what you're going to do. But a part of this profession is really being able to go to these events to network, because that's how you build. One, that's how, if you're looking to advance in your career, you want to make sure you have the right connections. And that's how you really get to build. You never know when you're going to need someone. I think Sam was the one who spoke about how one of our professors, his wife, he utilizes her as a psychiatrist in some of his cases. You just never know when you're going to be able, when you'll cross paths with someone else and when you're going to need to utilize someone in that network you build. And you always want to make sure that whatever event you attend, you're professional at all times, because your reputation inside law school and outside law school matters in the long run.
So I'm a bit of an extrovert and a peacock myself, as you might have noticed from the electric blue suit. I love networking events, and I'm glad Natalia hit on this. Always send follow-up emails, like 100% stack those business cards you get at the events, sit down the next day and just go through, hey, it was great to meet you. Thanks for telling me all about environmental law. Or if you really, like the person, your civil rights practice is fascinating. Do you want to get lunch sometime? I got an internship at a law firm that way during law school. They'd pay me. It was a civil rights firm, but it works out that way. I think there was more fear when my generation was in law school almost 10 years ago that there wasn't going to be a job for us than there is now. So we were a bit more motivated to get cards and talk to people and chase down leads for potential jobs. But there's so much more value to networking, to have friends to bounce ideas off of in cases, people who, I don't do bankruptcy, but I have 3 bankruptcy lawyers I can ask questions to in the middle of a day who I've networked with, made friends with. And, it's extremely valuable. And, if you're an introvert and have to use the Carisha Hawthorne method, I think that's a good method. It certainly worked for her. But it's very important to go to those events and follow up on the relationships you develop.
Show up. Don't be afraid to take a chance and say hello. That's all.
That was short and sweet. Thank you. We'll start with Carisha on this one. What other professional experiences or titles do you have aside from your current practice area?
Outside of being a mom and a wife. Okay. Like outside of being a mom and a wife. So currently I am involved in the Minority Bar Association. I do not have an executive board role. I'm also involved with the University of Buffalo Graduates of the Law last decade, also known as our Gold Group. I'm part of the Alumni Association. I attend events there. I recently came off a school board, a charter school board. I was one of the founding directors, so I sat on that board for 3 years. That's where I'm at right now. I've really tried to scale back. I've taught as an adjunct faculty at Erie County Community College, ECC. I taught in their paralegal studies. I did that up until 2021. Fall 2021 was my last semester. I am at a point in my life right now where I'm trying to do less. But since scaling back, those are some of the things that I've done. Again, you've probably heard this throughout the panel, and you'll probably hear it from all of the other panelists. There is an opportunity to do so much in the community, whether you decide to stay locally in the Western New York area or not. Your law degree, your JD degree is valued, and it's valued in whatever other organizations will be seeking you out to be board members. If you decide to go into the teaching adjunct life, that's something you could probably easily transition in. A JD degree is a value, and even if right now it may look daunting due to the cost or whatever other additional personal things that are going on in your life, see it as an investment in yourself, and an investment in, where you want to be in the future.
Thank you, Aaron.
Most of you are going to have opportunities once you get into the practice of law to do board service, right? And talk about some of the things that you do. There's a million local non-for-profits you've never heard of. And they need people to serve on their boards, and they really want lawyers to serve on their boards because they're confronted with all sorts of things where they're going to want your advice. I used to speak to accepted prospective law students, and one of the first things I would always say is, you're not going to believe this, but in 5 years from now, you're going to be on a board for a local nonprofit, and what is going to hit the fan, because there are a million things happen everywhere, and everybody in the room, even though you may not feel this way inside, everybody in the room around the table in the board meeting is going to look over at you, and they're going to say, I'll pick a name. I see Casey. Casey, you're a lawyer. What do we do? Right? And I know that sounds terrifying now, but it's not going to be, because after 3 years of school and after some practice, it's not that you're necessarily going to know the answer to their question, but you're going to have the judgment and the ability to think through what to do. And it's that type of service that really, you know, while it's not your title within the law firm, that's part of being a lawyer, because you're going to have a position within society where I think people are going to respect it. But with that respect comes responsibility, right? And that responsibility is going to be to serve your community in some way. Maybe you're part of the Volunteer Lawyers Project. Maybe you're helping an organization that helps children who are underprivileged, or any type of sector of society who is disadvantaged in some way, right? That's a huge part, and it doesn't get emphasized enough about being a lawyer. You can I think Natalia talked about how you can serve the public and the public good, not just necessarily because that would be your day job. It doesn't have to be your day job. You can do that as part of your job. But many of you are going to serve on a board. And it's a huge component of who you will be, I think, as a lawyer, because it's how you give back.
Yeah, I fully agree with everything that everyone's been saying. Just like Carisha, I'm on the Minority Bar Association. I'm also with Sam in the UB Gold Group, and with a bunch of other like community oriented boards. And that's sort of how I keep myself grounded and like giving back to the community. I will also say I also started doing, and not a lot of people know this, but once you become barred, you can become like a real estate agent or real estate broker, just by the nature of you having like a law license. And not a lot of people know that. And during COVID, I was a little bit bored, and I said, well, I have a couple extra hours in my time. Not really, but so I kind of made that like my little side hustle, and I started doing real estate. And through that experience, one, I generated extra income just besides like my profession, like my day job. But I also started learning more about like real estate law, because I had to kind of provide some guidance to some of my clients just because of what type of property we were acquiring or looking to buy. I also learned about trust and estates, wills, corporations, because some folks wanted to buy the property under an LLC or like an S corp or things like that. So you'll soon find that a lot of the law and like the legal profession is very intertwined with different things that you're going to end up doing. And you'll see that as you progress in your career. So, yeah.
So I think we'll run out of time if I list all the organizations I'm involved with. But let's just say I have trouble saying no. I am president of the Gold Group this year with Carisha and Natalia on our board, who are both doing great jobs. And I'm also a director for the Erie County Bar Association, which is an elected position and a really special group. There's student memberships available at Erie County Bar Association for free. And that's one of those groups that's going to just provide resources to you. They have a website, their Career Center website, that you get weekly, just with people in the community who paid to list jobs. I think that's where I have found every job I've ever had. There's also a ton of committees and subcommittees that would absolutely love law students to come and sit in on their committee meetings and learn about what they're talking about. I mean, we're talking everything from real estate to the unlicensed practice of law, to appellate practice, to tax practice. They have absolutely everything. They put on CLEs all the time, with their continuing legal education classes. And there's just a lot of great resources there. I think you need to be mindful of how many boards you're on. I know I resigned from a board last year because I couldn't make their weekend summit, which was going to be this great thing, and I was too busy, and also, wanted to see my children a little bit. And it occurred to me, someone else is going to step into this role, and they're going to, only have this on their calendar and absolutely love it. And who am I to stand in their way and have scheduling conflicts and things like that? Also, you're only as good as you have time for, so make sure you don't spread yourself too thin.
Thank you. And I
Good
just want to
job.
get to our
Thank you
last.
for that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Carisha.
No, I was just saying, good job saying no to that one, Sam.
Thank you. So our last question in the chat is anyone in Big Law or know any alums who have gotten into Big Law from UB?
They're all over the place. Like Natalia, I'm in medium law. We work for similarly sized firms, but many of my classmates went to New York, went to Washington, and went to other places. There are tons of alumni at those firms that make it a point to try to assist UB people getting in there. Those opportunities are aplenty. You don't have to go to law school in New York City or Washington, D.C. to work for one of those firms, 100%. There's plenty of opportunity. You might have to you might have to stand out a little bit more at UB than, maybe you would at like Columbia, but you work hard, you stand out, and all those doors are there to be opened.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, a lot of the big law firms also table and attend our career fairs, whether it's at UB Law specifically, or it's through one of the associations that are located in Buffalo. So for example, I know NEBALSA, which is the Northeast region of the National Black Law Student Association, they host their yearly job fair in the summer, and there's a number of members from our BALSA chapter that will go to that and get access to that. You can also interview during OCIs. And I think me and Sam just had to recently connect a current student who was interested in big law, and Sam within a few minutes just emailed me the contact of a partner in DC who was a UB alumni. So it's pretty easy to get connected, and it's also pretty easy to get that access to the big law firms too.
Wonderful, thank you. So we're going to wrap up because we're right at our time. I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us and bestowing their wisdom. Thank you all who have attended this week's events. Feel free to reach out to us if you have any follow-up questions or would like to be connected with any of our panelists today. I'll put my email in the chat.
And I just wanted to add, there was another part to Tabitha's question. Kudos to you driving across the border every day and going to law school with a child in daycare. I was lucky. My wife was home with our daughter and helped with daycare. So that is a lot. Good for you. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night, everyone.